So today we are starting a new series called Bucket List, 5 Things to Do Before You Die. We're going to be looking over the course of the next few weeks at what's called the farewell discourse in the Gospel of John. It's the last little bit of the life of Jesus in the Gospel of John. I think he does some of his most direct teaching and preaching to his disciples and helping them to figure out what really matters in life. I love the video that we just watched. I've been inspired by that video. And so according to that and according to research, the average person lives for 25,915 days. The good news for you is that if you are an American man, raise your hand. Congratulations. You will probably actually live on average for 28,944 days. And if you're an American woman, raise your hand. Good. You will probably live for 29,784 days. You'll get 1,000 days without us. That'll be probably really good for you. But the world's average is about 3,702 weeks, 852 months. The clock is ticking. And so whether it's 20,000 days or 40,000 days, the point is this: our days are numbered. When I see this video and when I think about those numbers, I can't help but ask myself, how then do I make them count? If I'm eventually going to kick the bucket, how do I fill it while I've still got it? And I'll just be really transparent here, kind of confessional. I often want more out of life than what I'm currently getting. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but if you are, I end so many of my days feeling like I've wasted the day, feeling like I've wasted the opportunities that are in front of me. I'm not taking advantage of every opportunity. I've not said the words that I wanted to say or that I needed to say in the moment. I've not done the things that I wanted to do. I've spent too much time looking at a device in my hand rather than really giving quality time to my wife and my kids. I got teary-eyed the first 14 times that I watched this video, and so I had to like desensitize myself to it. I watched it on repeat about 40 times this week, and I was still like about to lose it over here when it was on. Because for me, it's a sobering reminder that I don't always make all my days count. I don't know if you're like me this morning. That's why I hate watching This Is Us. Right? I'll never be the father and husband that Jack Pearson is on This Is Us, although, I'm trying to work on the mustache a little bit like his. Which, anyway, it inevitably brings me to that question. That conversation, that line of thinking inevitably brings me to this question. If I'm going to try to make every day, every moment count, like, what's on my bucket list? What's on your bucket list? Are there things that you want to do or things that you know that you need to do or you want to be sure that you do before you die? What's on your bucket list? What do you need to do to make the absolute most out of your life? The Reebok campaign that this commercial came from, it said this, I love it. It says, each of us is a miracle, a living, breathing, walking, talking, running, climbing, jumping, caring miracle. A miracle that happens only once. At Reebok, we believe that no matter what your miracle looks like, it's yours. You get one life, and you have to absolutely, positively make the most of it. It is your duty to honor the body you've been given because you have only one body to honor. I'm ready to buy some Reebok stuff right now. It works. This campaign is working on me. Now, when you came in here this morning, you should have had on your chair a journal. Even you up there in the bleachers, you've got a journal. I want you to grab that. On the front of it, it says bucket list, 5 things to do before you die. This is a bucket list journal. And so we want you to keep this with you throughout the bucket list series, which lasts between now and Easter over the next 40 days. It's got daily scripture readings in it. It's got some thoughts for you to think about, some questions for you to think about. It's got some activities for you to do. And we've entered into a season in the church called Lent. We've alluded to that today. Lent is the 40 days leading up to Easter. And the idea behind Lent is that it's the time of the year when followers of Jesus either give things up or they take things up that might help them grow closer in their relationship with God. And so we've put together this tool for you because what we're hoping is you're going to take up a daily practice of scripture reading and reflection and trying to think through and listen for the voice of God in your life to be the kind of person that God is inviting you to be. And so whether you begin your day with this or you end your day with this or you do this on your lunch break, I want you to keep it with you over the course of the next 40 days. And actually, I want to give you a chance to get started with it right now. You should have also had pens on your seat. And so I want you to take the journal. There's a front page, there's a place for your name. That way it doesn't get lost. If you want to write a reward on there if somebody returns it to you, you can do that as well. There's some instructions there, some place for notes. But if you turn about 4 or 5 pages in, there's a picture of a bucket, and there are some boxes, and it just says bucket list. I want to give you a minute to get started on this list. Some of you already have things in mind that would be on your bucket list, the things you want to do or accomplish before you die. Some of you might need to think about that for a minute. I'm going to give you that minute right now. Take a pen and just see if you can write down 3 or 4 or 5 things on this list. Go. So I want you to take this home with you, and maybe sometime over the course of the afternoon, see if you can fill out all 25 spots. Some of you might need more paper. You could find some space in the margin or write some more things in the notes. But see if you can come up with 25 things to put on your bucket list, and we'll kind of work through that over the course of the next few weeks together. In 2005, Steve Jobs gave the commencement speech at Stanford University. It's it's been a well-watched commencement speech. And this was after his first bout with pancreatic cancer. And in that speech, he said this. He said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to make the big choices in life, because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important." Steve Jobs said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is one of the most important things that I've ever done." Jesus actually took that sentiment farther in the reading from John this morning. Jesus taught the disciples that the secret to life now isn't just knowing that you're going to die someday, but Jesus said the secret to life now is actually dying now so that you can live. Here's what he said again. He said, "Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." The other Gospels report Jesus said, "If you want to find your life, you've got to lose your life." In other words, Jesus said you don't have to wait to die. You shouldn't wait to die. If you want to live later, you need to die now. Actually, if you want to live now, you need to die now. That's what Jesus said. The hope-filled message this morning is we are all going to die, right? That's the hope-filled message of the bucket list series. We are all eventually going to kick the bucket. I'm going to die, you're going to die, nobody gets out alive. That shouldn't be breaking news to anybody. But as I've thought about it this week, it's actually been really powerful for me, because as I've thought about it this week, I've thought, one thing that I don't want to die with. I suspect it's true for many of you. I don't want to die with regret. The one thing I don't want to die with is regret. And as I thought about regret, I thought, like, what's the root of regret? What's the source of regret? And what I've come back to over and over, and thinking about the things in my life that I regret, the thing that I've come back to over and over, I think the foundation of regret is selfishness. Selfishness is what leads to regret. The regrets that I have in my life are from the times when I only thought about myself. The only things I regret from my life are things that I did only for me. And again, this goes right back to what Jesus says. You don't have to wait to die. You shouldn't wait to die. If you want to live later, you should die now. If you want to live now, you should die now. If I think about the very best memories of my life, the very best times, the very best experiences in my life are times that I died. Not physically, I'm not talking about physical death, clearly, but I've died multiple times in my life, and it has often led me to more life than I ever could have imagined. I can think about a couple of different examples of that. The first thing that I can think about is my best birthday ever. My best birthday ever. It wasn't a party. It wasn't some kind of Travis extravaganza, a travaganza. So I just came up with that right now. Wow, that's really good. Copyright Travis Garner 2019. Now, I've had some of those. I've had some travaganzas, and they've been really fun, but they weren't my best birthday ever. My best birthday ever, I spent sleeping on the floor, on a sleeping bag, and a cruddy air mattress, without a shower for a week, dirty, smelly, in the heat and the dust of Juarez, Mexico, where I joined a team of youth and we built a house for a family that was literally living in a cardboard box. I died to myself, and it was the best birthday I've ever had. Now, another time when I died. I love music. I was a music major in college. I dabbled around playing bass in a couple bands along the way, and I had this beautiful fretless jazz bass, Fender jazz bass. I loved it. I loved the way it looked. I loved the way it felt. It was so smooth. It sounded good, especially when other people who could play the bass played it. I played that bass in a lot of fun places. I had a lot of really great memories with that bass. You know the very best thing that I ever did with that bass? I sold it. It's the very best thing I ever did with my favorite bass. I sold it. I sold it, and I gave the money away in order to dig a well in Africa. It's actually one of the very best seasons in our marriage. Amanda and I at our mother church, Brentwood Methodist, we'd been given a packet with a $5 bill and given the challenge to multiply that money and do some kind of good with it. And so we did what you do. We said, well, let's see if we can turn our $5 into $5,000 somehow. Let's try to multiply it that many-fold. Math person, help me out. 1,000 times 1,000, 5 times 1,000 is 5,000. Right, Cliff? Am I right? Thank you. Okay, good. So we decided we would try to do that, and we invented this game called 21 for Water, where we said to people, we used social media in its infancy, and we said, okay, if you'll send us $20, we'll send you $1, and then you see if you can get somebody to send you $20 for $1, and we'll create this chain, and then send us the money, because that sounds real, hey, stranger, send us some money from across the country. And what happened was amazing. People literally from all over the country started sending us $20 bills. We even had people in a church plant in California who heard about it. They sent us $20 and they said, "This is amazing. We're going to use all of our marketing money for our new church plant to do this kind of thing. We love this idea." And so we did all kinds of things in that season. I mean, we created a website. It was horrible, but it still worked. And we made up an email address, 5 to 5,000 at whatever.com. And we just started seeing things come in. And that wasn't enough for us. We got a taste of what that felt like. And we said, what can we sell? We started selling our stuff that we love, stuff like my my Fender Jazz fretless bass that was beautiful. We sold that and we started to collect money, and it came time for the day. Our goal was $5,000, and the morning of kind of the collection at the church, we were really disappointed because we'd only come up with $3,700. We'd missed our goal, and so I was despondent. I was doing this walk. That's my disappointment walk. I'll walk around the house like that sometimes if I'm just disappointed. You can know. So we showed up at the church with our $3,700, and I was walking down to talk to some of the youth that morning, and I ran into one of our youth, and I said, "Hey, man, what'd you guys do for your, for your money multiplication thing?" And he said, "Well, we wanted to dig a well." Some of my buddies and I, we wanted to dig a well. It cost $5,000. We had a car wash. It was like massive success for the car wash, but we were really short on our goal. We came up with $1,300. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm slow on the math here, but we came up with $3,700 to dig a well, and he came up with $13,000, and it seems like if we put that together, that would be $5,000. It was like a really incredible experience that never would have happened had we not died to ourselves and said, we want to be part of something bigger than us. We want our lives to mean something beyond us. I'm hoping to hear some really great stories of people dying to self as we try to raise this audacious goal of $60,000 to provide water for an entire community in Tanzania. You don't have to wait to die. You shouldn't wait to die. If you want to live later, you need to die now. If you want to live now, you need to die now. This week, on Wednesday, Valentine's Day, Christians around the world celebrated something called Ash Wednesday. If you saw people out, maybe you saw people with a smudge on their forehead in the shape of a cross. We're going to be having Ash Sunday here in just a minute since we don't have a space to meet together on Wednesdays. And Ash Wednesday is all about recognizing our brokenness as humans. It's all about recognizing our sinfulness. It's about coming face to face with our mortality. And nowhere did we see that brokenness of humanity more on display than at a high school in Florida this week, where a 19-year-old kid came in and wreaked havoc on teachers and classmates at his high school. Teachers literally laid down their lives for their students this week outside of their classrooms. I know, because I've talked to many of you, there is fear in this room right now. Our teachers are fearful, our parents are fearful, our students are fearful. There is real, legitimate fear about the safety of our kids. Teachers tomorrow in Nashville and Williamson County, rather than having school, rather than being in the classroom with their students, they're going to be doing a shooter training because it seems like that's what we have to do in the world that we live in. Every morning when Amanda takes the boys to school, I go to the garage as they're backing out and I hold this up because I want my boys to see when they leave the house, I want the last thing they see from me is me saying, I love you. Amanda and I were talking about this yesterday. She said every single day when she drops the boys off and they're getting out of the van to go into school, she looks them in the eyeballs and she says, I love you. And she said every morning as they're walking into their school, she thinks, I hope this isn't the last time I ever say that to them. Friends, I don't believe that this is primarily a political issue. I believe that this is primarily a theological issue. And we need to be asking ourselves theological questions. We need to be asking each other theological questions. We need to be asking our leaders theological questions. We can disagree on policy, but I don't think there's a lot of wiggle room on theology here. Because if you flip through the pages of Scripture, you see that God is a God of life. In John chapter 10, Jesus said, "The reason that I've come that you might have life and have it to the full." God is a God of life, and I think that in order to find life, we've got to think about this theologically, and we've got to begin to die to ourselves. We've got to die to our selfishness. People all over the spectrum, we've got to die to our own opinions. We've got to die to our own politics. We've got to die, I think, to our own rights. I think this is a theological issue, and it demands theological questions. If we want to promote a culture of life as people who follow a God of life, then we've got to bury a culture of death. We have to die to the notion that this is just the way it is and that we can't do anything about it. We have to die to ourselves. This is one example of many that we could look at in the world where we need to be asking theological questions of life. You don't have to wait to die. You shouldn't wait to die. If you want to live later, you've got to die now. If you want to live now, you've got to die now. Paul writes about this in Galatians chapter 2. He says, "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me." Later on, this just struck me as Susie was reading. Jesus said, "Now is the time for judgment on this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out." And the prince of this world will be driven out by the love of Christ, by the life that Christ offers, by the hope that Christ offers, and by people who embrace that and won't let it go. And so here's the question as we begin this series, as we begin this 40 days leading toward Easter. Are you willing to die so that you can live? What in you needs to die over these next 40 days so that God can become alive in you?